Yeah, and usually the joints are the one that requires more time to recover than the muscle. So by using many movements that involves many joints, then the recovery becomes really long.
Yeah, I would say the biggest problem with joints isn't so much that we use the joint too often, although it is one of the factors. The biggest problem that people have with their joints is doing exercises that are unnatural. They're not movements that the body was meant to do, right? So one example I give is we know that working the bicep just requires this.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to do a curl behind my back? No. Why would you complicate it when there's a simple way of doing that? Okay, well, same thing with the shoulder muscle, the deltoid muscles. This is what the shoulder joint was meant to do. And this, that's what it was meant to do. When you do an overhead press, that doesn't resemble any of those three movements I just did. We know what the perfect trajectory of the humerus is when you're activating the front deltoid. We know what the trajectory is when you're doing side deltoid. We know what the trajectory is when you're doing rear deltoid. Why would you do a different trajectory entirely for muscles that you've already identified as having a different kind of trajectory? Right? Not to mention the fact that anybody can just do this at home. Just go to a mirror, look at the mirror, put your arm up like this, bend your elbow, and then slowly rotate and pay attention to what you're feeling and ask yourself, how far can I rotate before I start to feel pain? I mean, it doesn't start as pain. It starts as strain, discomfort. You know, I mean, you could go from green light, yellow light, turning more red, turning purple, right? So you know that the more you rotate externally, the more you go into that red, purple zone, right? As you come back, you're more in the yellow zone, still not green. When you get like this, you're green, you're healthy. That's where the shoulder joint is supposed to be, right? The more you externally rotate it, the more you enter the danger zone. So why would you do an exercise that puts you in the danger zone before you even add weight?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. Now, a lot of people may discover, if they really do this test, as I said, that they actually cannot rotate their shoulder joint enough, their arm enough, to get their forearm to be vertical when you look at it from the side. And I encourage everyone who's watching this, next time you're in the gym, none of us are in the gym now, right? Next time you're in among a bunch of people that are exercising and they're doing overhead presses, you will see, I guarantee you, I've seen it all the time, people doing an overhead press with a forearm that's slanting forward. Well, that forearm wants to fall more forward because it follows the rules of physics. And you may not be realizing it, but you are preventing that from happening by actually reverse arm wrestling it, externally rotating that arm to prevent it from falling farther forward. And the muscle that does that is called the infraspinatus, which is one of two, the primary actually external rotator of the shoulder joint. But it's doing it from a direction that it's not suited to do, right? It wants to pull in toward the inner part of the scapula, but you're asking it to rotate this way as if it's anchored down here, but it's anchored over there, right? So any amount of resistance forward requires 8 or 9 times more force than you'd have to produce if you were rotating externally this way. So it just doesn't make any sense for people to do an overhead press, but they don't know that. They think it's perfectly normal and natural because it's been around a long time. They complain of shoulder pain. My joints ache. What do they say? They blame it on age. Mm-hmm. They blame it on something else. No, you're doing a wrong exercise, an exercise that's wrong, quote unquote, in terms of whether it's natural. Our early hominid ancestors did not have to do a vertical overhead press ever. The shoulder joint was not designed to do that kind of motion, right? And the fact that impingement syndrome is one of the most common shoulder problems. Impingement syndrome is when you push your humerus up underneath your acromion process and you pinch the supraspinatus tendon and the subacromial bursa over and over again. That's evidence that we were not designed to do that every day or twice a week with heavy weight, right? If at all. So people come up to me and they go, you know, do you find that as you get older, your joints ache more, or that you can't train hard anymore? You can't train heavy anymore. I go, I pretend. I go, no, I'm fine. Well, do you train heavy? Yeah, I train really heavy. Like how heavy? Like heavy enough that I can't do more than 6 reps, but I don't do an overhead press.
Yes.
I do heavy this and heavy this and heavy this, right? If you do the exercise that the shoulder joint was designed to do, you can go heavy without joint problems.